This is a subscription-only audiobook podcast featuring Nicola Knobel reading each chapter of her book, Unmasking Leadership, Neurodivergent Leaders, Psychological Safety, and the Future of Inclusive Workplaces. This series is for listeners who want to understand how leadership, safety, and inclusion actually operate beneath the surface. The book explores how neurodivergent people experience work, why psychological safety often fails in practice, and how systems designed to protect people can instead create harm. Chapters are released regularly and are presented in full, allowing the ideas to be heard without simplification or sound bites. Thank you for choosing to listen in full.
Chapter 5, The Language of Neurodiversity. Every movement develops its own language. For neurodiversity, words are not just labels, they are tools for design. The language we use to describe how brains work determines how we respond to difference. When teams have a shared vocabulary, they can talk about needs and strengths without shame, confusion, or clinical distance. In neurodiversity-informed workplaces, language is not about diagnosis. It's about clarity. It helps us move from assumptions to understanding. Many of these words come directly from lived experience and everyday practice rather than medical textbooks. And that's precisely why they matter. They translate complex neuroscience into words people can use in meetings, coaching sessions, and project planning. Core language of neurodiversity. When we talk about neurodiversity, we mean the natural variation in how human brains think, feel, sense, and learn. It's a recognition that the average brain doesn't really exist. It's just a statistical midpoint on a bell curve. The term neurodivergent refers to people whose cognitive style differs from what society considers typical, including those with autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, Tourette's, and other neurological differences. The opposite term, neurotypical, isn't a hierarchy. It's just a reference point. No one is entirely typical all the time. Understanding this language helps us stop measuring people against an invisible standard of normal and instead focus on designing systems where variation can thrive. Many neurodivergent people use the word masking to describe the effort required to hide or imitate behaviors in order to appear more socially acceptable. Masking might mean suppressing natural movement, forcing eye contact, or monitoring tone to sound professional. It often leads to exhaustion and burnout. Leaders who create environments where people can drop the mask through predictability, clarity, and psychological safety unlock genuine productivity. We will go into unmasking later in the book too. You'll also hear the word hyperfocus. It describes the intense, sustained concentration common in ADHD, autism, and other neurotypes. In the right conditions, hyperfocus can produce extraordinary work, deep analysis, creative breakthroughs, or the completion of complex projects in record time. When someone is hyperfocused, distractions fade, time passes unnoticed, and the task at hand feels almost magnetic. Many of the most innovative ideas in business, science, and art have emerged from these deep focus states. Closely related, but subtly different, is hyperfixation. Hyperfixation isn't just intense focus, it's emotional immersion. It happens when a topic, task, or idea becomes all-consuming, sometimes to the point of blocking out other priorities. For many ADHD or AuDHD individuals, hyperfixations come in waves. A sudden burst of fascination that drives rapid learning, experimentation, and creation. These periods can be incredibly productive, but also exhausting if not balanced with rest or external pacing. This book, for example, was my hyperfixation, LOLs.
Let's take a quick break here. If you would like to support this work, you can head to nicolanobel.com to check out the book, subscription options, and a small range of merch designed for neurodivergent thinkers and leaders. Your support helps keep this project independent and accessible. Now back to the chapter.
Then there are special interests, a term often associated with autism but familiar to anyone who has ever lost hours to curiosity. Special interests are long-term, deeply held areas of passion or expertise that provide stability, joy, and identity. Unlike hyperfixations, they're not fleeting. They're part of how many autistic people process the world and find connection. In the workplace, a special interest might evolve into technical mastery, niche expertise, or a trusted source of innovation. For leaders, understanding these three experiences, hyperfocus, hyperfixation, and special interests, means recognizing that motivation and productivity aren't just functions of discipline. They're functions of engagement and regulation. When a person is allowed to follow interests safely and recover fully, their output isn't sporadic, it's strategic. Leaders can design for this by alternating deep work with decompression time, protecting uninterrupted focus periods, and valuing passion projects as legitimate contributions rather than indulgences. When interest is treated as fuel rather than flaw, performance stops looking unpredictable and starts looking like potential realized. Executive function is another key term. It refers to the brain's control center, our ability to plan, prioritize, manage time, regulate emotion, and shift attention. Many neurodivergent people experience executive function variability. This doesn't mean they lack discipline, it means they manage mental resources differently. Clear instructions, reminders, and external structure are not hand-holding. They're cognitive accessibility tools. Monotropic thinking describes a cognitive style in which attention is naturally drawn toward a narrow set of interests or tasks, creating deep focus but reducing capacity to shift attention quickly. Murray et al., 2005. It is often discussed in the context of autism, where the strong single focus can support detailed thinking, pattern recognition, and sustained engagement, while also making rapid task switching or divided attention more difficult. The theory suggests that when attention is heavily invested in one channel, it becomes harder to disengage or respond to competing demands, which explains why interruptions, unexpected changes, or sensory overload can feel especially challenging. Murray and Lesser, 2018. You sit down to work on a project and your brain locks fully onto the goal. In your head, there is one clear path, one pace, and one definition of what done properly looks like. If anything disrupts that path, like someone suggesting a different approach or asking you to switch tasks, it feels jarring rather than neutral. Your attention is already fully invested in one channel, so your brain interprets the interruption as a complete derailment rather than a small detour. Because of that narrow but powerful focus, the situation becomes all or nothing, right or wrong, on track or off track. That is monotropism in action, which is essentially black and white thinking that can surface when your attention has nowhere else to go. Finally, sensory regulation describes how people manage environmental input: noise, light, texture, temperature, and social context. Some people crave stimulation, others are overwhelmed by it. Sensory-friendly workspaces, quiet rooms, flexible lighting, and noise controls are simple examples of design that respects this need.
A quick pause before we continue. If you would like practical tools to support neurodivergent thinking at work, there are free resources available on NicolaKnobel.com. These include downloadable guides and templates designed to support focus, regulation, and safer ways of working. You can download them now, no subscription required. Now back to the chapter.
Everyday strategies and supports. Neurodivergent workers often rely on practical strategies to stay focused, manage transitions, and regulate energy. These aren't coping mechanisms, they're design adjustments. One of the most well known is body doubling, working alongside someone, either physically or virtually, to maintain attention through shared presence. It's not about supervision, it's about accountability through companionship. Many people with ADHD use co working calls or open office hours for this reason. Scaffolding is another. Borrowed from education and construction, it means providing temporary supports that help complete a task, like checklists, templates, mentoring, or step by step coaching. Once confidence grows, the scaffolding can be removed. Leaders who understand scaffolding use it deliberately, offering structure without micromanagement. Chunking means breaking a large task into smaller, clearly defined parts. Instead of finish the report, it becomes write the summary, then add references, then format the data. It's a simple but powerful way to prevent overwhelm. Time blocking is the practice of allocating blocks of uninterrupted focus time to one task instead of switching between many. This is especially effective for ADHD and autistic professionals who may lose focus through constant context switching. You might also hear the term dopamine menu. It describes a list of small, enjoyable activities that provide motivation or reset focus. Walking, music, making tea, or quick creative tasks. Leaders who encourage micro breaks or dopamine resets are supporting energy regulation, not wasting time. Other words capture subtle but important concepts. Transition time refers to the space needed between tasks or meetings to mentally reset. Anchor tasks are stable, familiar activities that help start the workday. Regulation breaks are intentional pauses to stretch, breathe, or decompress. These aren't indulgences, they're preventative safety controls against burnout. Some teams develop shared cues for overwhelm, such as a safe word or signal. This allows someone to step back or pause without having to explain sensory distress in detail. This simple act of co-design communicates trust and reduces stigma. And then there's task initiation, the hardest part of work for many neurodivergent people. It's not laziness, it's the brain's difficulty moving from intention to action. Techniques like body doubling, music, or external deadlines can help bridge that gap. All of these strategies are forms of universal design. They may have originated as accessibility tools, but they benefit everyone. Structured meetings, written summaries, predictable workflows, and flexible rest times improve performance for all employees, not just those with diagnoses.
If you are finding this series useful, subscribing really helps. It means you get each new chapter as it's released, and it signals to the platform that this content is worth sharing. Leaving a quick review also makes a genuine difference to Nicola. Reviews help this reach a wider audience, especially people who are looking for leadership, psychological safety, and neurodiversity content that goes deeper than sound bites. Thank you for supporting independent work like this. Back to the chapter.
Finding the balance in language. The way we talk about neurodiversity shapes how we design for it. For decades, most language has focused on deficit, what neurodivergent people lack, what they cannot do, and what must be corrected. Medical frameworks still describe autism, ADHD, and related conditions through lists of impairments and symptoms. Those definitions are not entirely wrong, but they are incomplete. They place the problem within the person instead of within the environment that excludes them. In recent years, the conversation has shifted in the opposite direction. Many people now describe neurodivergence as a superpower, a source of creativity, honesty, focus, or innovation. There is truth in that. Many neurodivergent traits become extraordinary strengths when the conditions are right. Deep focus, pattern recognition, spontaneous problem solving, and intuitive empathy can all be transformative in the right setting. Yet calling neurodivergence a superpower can also flatten the experience. It risks ignoring the daily work required to live in systems that are not built for difference. For every flash of creativity, there is often recovery that no one sees. Executive function loss, sensory fatigue, and emotional burnout are not character flaws. They are the cost of continuous adaptation. Describing neurodiversity only through strength can pressure people to perform inspiration while they are struggling to self-regulate. The truth sits somewhere in the middle. Neurodivergent traits are neither weaknesses to be corrected nor powers to be celebrated in isolation. They are variations that bring both potential and cost. Leaders who understand this balance build environments that make strengths usable and challenges manageable. They recognize that a person can be capable and still tired, brilliant and still inconsistent, strategic and still forgetful. In other words, they see the whole person. When our language captures that full picture, it stops being rhetoric and becomes realism. Realism is what turns awareness into understanding and understanding into action. How leaders use the language. Understanding this language doesn't mean memorizing definitions. It means internalizing what they represent. When a leader says, let's scaffold this project, they are signaling that structure is welcome, not infantilizing. When they ask, how's your bandwidth today? They're showing awareness that energy fluctuates and that rest is part of the work cycle. Language like this normalizes difference. It also helps leaders move conversations from emotion to design. Instead of saying, you seem disengaged, a leader might ask, what's draining your bandwidth right now? Or would chunking this task help? Identifying the environmental variable instead of the personal flaw. Learning to use neurodiversity-informed language shifts culture from judgment to curiosity. It makes feedback more transparent, planning more predictable, and meetings more inclusive. Over time, it replaces the unspoken rules of workplace behavior with explicit, shared understanding. In conversations about neurodiversity, language often becomes a battleground of buzzwords. Terms like resilience, difference, masking, and inclusion are used so frequently that they can lose their meaning. No single vocabulary can fully capture the complexity of human minds. What matters most is that people and teams co-create language that feels authentic and respectful to them. As Walker 2021 and Praslova 2024 both argue, language is not just descriptive, it is political. The words we use determine whose experiences are validated and whose are erased. Creating your own shared vocabulary within your team, leadership culture, or organization is an act of inclusion. It signals that you are listening, adapting, and recognizing that identity is not one size fits all. I'm not the judge of the words anyone uses. What matters is intent and impact. When a team chooses language together, it reflects collective ownership and belonging. Neurodiversity isn't about memorizing the right terminology. It's about building psychological safety through mutual respect, curiosity, and shared meaning.
Thank you for listening to Unmasking Leadership. By choosing to listen to this work in full, you are supporting deeper conversations about leadership, safety, and inclusion, and the space to sit with ideas that are often rushed or avoided at work. Your support makes this project possible. Until next time, thank you for being here.